An ancient legend tells of the children of day and night, whose mutual hatred passed down through the ages to humans. This eternal battle manifests as a clash between light and shadow, continuing to this very day. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble violently around a building. The rumbling continues near a bank, and a thought arises about even the villains rotting in hell. A chilling grin spreads across the face of an approaching villain. Radiating sinister power, this jester stands on a large ball, dreaming of ascending to heaven. Police officers are paralyzed with fear, witnessing the beginning of this horrific and thrilling show. From atop a giant ball, Ralph declares, "Welcome to the Ralph Show!" As his spectacle begins. Ralph deploys a devastating death ball, causing a catastrophic explosion as a bystander cries out a warning. Ralph swiftly maneuvers away from the immediate danger of the blast. Ralph the Clown, an A-rank summoner of chaos, basks in the destruction. Pleased, it's exactly as he wanted. A trembling hand struggles to hold a weapon, overwhelmed by the unfolding terror. Despite the fear, an officer aims his trembling gun at Ralph, who appears to question his resolve. Ralph dismissively glances toward his would-be attacker. He charges his glowing maraca-like weapon, crackling with sinister energy. With a contemptuous thought for his attacker, Ralph twirls his weapon, ready to retaliate. Ralph declares, "Adios, sucker!" launching his powerful pin shot toward the officer. A wide, confident grin spreads across Ralph's face. The attack connects with a powerful impact, confirming Ralph's confident grin. As the explosion erupts outside, other villains descend into greedy chaos inside the bank. A yellow school bus speeds along, leaving a trail of smoke. The bus wheel screeches loudly as it comes to a sudden stop. Ralph the Clown looks down from above, observing the distant yellow school bus. Masked villains rush forward, ready to leave the scene of their crime. Ralph strides forward as his accomplices run with quickening footsteps. A gloved hand crushes a wad of cash, savoring the illegal gains. Ralph holds the stolen money to his nose, taking a deep, satisfied breath. Grinning mischievously, Ralph declares his plan to use the money to build a land of horror and terror. Villains hurry towards the bus door, bringing a bundled item and a captive woman. A villain pounds impatiently on the bus door, demanding entry. The bus door slides open, revealing the interior. An impatient villain berates the masked bus driver for the delay in opening the door. A distressed blonde woman inside the bus asks nervously about the intruders. A villain with a tattooed arm responds with a chilling smirk. The masked bus driver observes the unfolding situation with focused eyes. A villain holds a crying child, revealing she is the governor's daughter. Villains boast about having the governor's wife and child, anticipating a significant ransom. The masked bus driver remains a silent and dark presence in the bus. A high-heeled shoe rushes forward in a panicked movement. The blonde woman desperately pleads for her daughter's release, emphasizing her youth. The villain grips the distressed blonde woman's arm, ordering her to be silent as she cries out. The child cries out for her mother as the blonde woman lunges, calling her daughter's name. The villain tells the struggling child to stay still, holding her tightly. The villain's eyes widen in surprise as he hears an unexpected voice call out. The masked bus driver stands behind the villain, commanding him to release the child. The masked driver's gloved hand suddenly clamps down on the villain's arm. The masked driver forcefully pulls the villain, reiterating his demand to release the child. The masked driver tosses the villain aside as another accomplice yells in outrage. The masked driver's eye glows intensely as he swiftly turns towards his next target. The narration explains there are two kinds of people with special abilities: those driven by desires to commit crimes. These criminals, such as Ralph the Clown and his armed accomplices, are known as villains. Ralph enthusiastically directs his crew to celebrate their successful operation. Back on the bus, a gloved hand suddenly grips the door handle. With incredible force, a villain is launched dramatically through the bus window. Ralph and his accomplices stare in utter shock, bewildered by the sudden attack. The narration continues, introducing the other kind of people with abilities. Those who fight against villains. The masked driver powerfully yanks another villain by his jacket, demonstrating his strength. The masked driver stands heroically as the tossed villain flies away, protecting the people. A furious Ralph points his finger, demanding to know the masked driver's identity. The masked driver smirks confidently, declaring his intention to take out the trash. The masked driver faces Ralph and his accomplices, who are identified as descendants of the Child of Day. The masked driver, S-rank psyker Cassian Lee, smirks confidently with an intense grin. Ralph is utterly flustered by Cassian's presence, exclaiming in outrage, "What's that prick doing here?" Cassian plucks an earpiece from his ear as an unseen voice questions his actions. His hand begins to glow with a powerful flare, preparing for a fiery attack. Ralph and his crew look defeated as Cassian declares they are finally alone and ready for action. Ralph grits his teeth in frustration, cursing the situation. Cassian, now engulfed in flames, vows to burn all the villains to ashes. Every last one of them. The scene shifts to a bright day in a bustling city, filled with people and tall buildings. News reports detail public outcry over a psyker's excessive force against bank robbers on South Fifth Avenue. The Human Rights Committee officially requested Lampus, an international organization of psykers, to punish Cassian Lee for his ruthless violence. The narrative transitions to an exterior shot of the impressive Lampus, Washington office building. Inside, S-rank psyker Tuppence Schiller sips tea and directly asks Cassian, "Are you a villain?" Cassian's gloved hand clenches and crumples a piece of paper as he addresses her. "Director," he protests, saying it is unfair to compare him to villains, but Tuppence retorts he should consider his actions. Cassian further laments that even the public has turned their backs on them. He tries to justify his actions, explaining the villains had harmed a hostage, but Tuppence cuts him off. Tuppence calmly emphasizes that the safety of a hostage comes first, a fact Cassian should know. Cassian confidently asserts his belief that he could save the hostages unharmed. Tuppence sternly advises him, as a psyker, to think and act rationally and calmly. Tuppence sternly tells Cassian that his actions are no different from a villain's, regardless of his intentions. Cassian silently reflects on Tuppence's words, deep in thought. Tuppence then informs Cassian that he is suspended and warns him to stay out of trouble, which clearly frustrates him. As Cassian walks down a hallway, he internally calls Tuppence an iron witch, as cold as ever. He shakes his head, wondering how his friend Jeff managed to become best friends with her. Cassian considers leaving the building when his phone suddenly vibrates. He sees an incoming call from Jeff and questions the timing aloud. Answering, Cassian casually greets Jeff and asks what is going on, while operating a vending machine. A drink can drops as Cassian expresses surprise, asking, "What? Right now? And where are you?" Cassian's eyes widen in shock as Jeff reveals he is currently in Rhodes, Greece. The scene shifts to a sunny Rhodes International Airport with planes on the tarmac. A panoramic view showcases a bustling city nestled beside the sparkling sea. Cassian appreciates the beautiful scenery with a cup of tea, thinking he should thank Jeff for the experience. Sitting at an outdoor cafe, Cassian ponders that it has been about 6 months since a significant event. He quietly reflects, lost in thought as he sips his drink. His thoughts drift back to a distant memory of the HC orphanage. Inside the orphanage, children marvel as their stuffed animals miraculously begin to twitch and move. A younger Cassian and his friends excitedly question Jeff, wondering if the toys were alive. Jeff, with a knowing smile, explains it is just a doll, and he is using his ability to make them move. Young Cassian eagerly asks if Jeff will become a psyker, and suggests he could beat villains and be on TV. Young Jeff, with a slight smile, humbly expresses doubt about being good enough to be a psyker. Young Cassian, undeterred, brightly tells Jeff that he is wrong and so cool while glowing. Back at the cafe, Cassian sips his tea, thinking he had no worries back then and misses those days. He raises his teacup, lost in the bittersweet memories of his past. The memory fades as the sky transitions into a vivid sunset. Cassian stands outside the cafe, observing the evening sky and empty tables. Cassian checks his phone, seeing it is 7:30 p.m., and thinks that Jeff is late. Pacing anxiously, Cassian worries Jeff isn't answering his phone and wonders if something happened. Suddenly, a gravely injured Jeff, leaning on someone, calls out Cassian's name. Cassian looks on in stunned shock, his eyes wide at the unexpected sight. He immediately recognizes the injured man and exclaims, "Jeff!" Cassian catches a collapsing Jeff, asking what happened and if villains did this to him. Jeff, looking distraught, apologizes for calling Cassian here, but Cassian questions his words. Jeff insists Cassian take a glowing pendant, but Cassian protests it is not important right now. As Cassian worries about Jeff's severe injuries, Jeff tries to redirect his attention to the necklace. Jeff violently coughs up blood, his face contorted in agony and fear. Cassian's eyes widen further in alarm at Jeff's worsening condition. In a panic, Jeff desperately urges Cassian to leave immediately to avoid danger. Cassian reaches for his phone to call an ambulance, while an ominous shadow looms from below. Cassian looks down with a confused expression, noticing something strange on his phone. Cassian looks up with alarm and asks, "Who's there?" as a shadowy figure approaches. A sudden force shoves Cassian violently. Cassian's face contorts in shock and pain from the unexpected assault. The shadowy figure's eyes glow red, indicating a menacing presence. The attacker slashes at Cassian with a glowing sword. Cassian is knocked back by the powerful strike. An injured Jeff stares in disbelief, splattered with blood. Cassian's eyes widen further as he shouts Jeff's name in terror. Cassian's eye glows blue as a strange sound occurs. Cassian struggles to respond, looking down at the grievously injured Jeff. Cassian watches in disbelief as the attacker dashes away across the rooftops. Cassian clenches his fist tightly, filled with intense frustration. Enraged, Cassian chases after the attacker, shouting for them to stop. The attacker lands in the water below, creating a large splash. Cassian stands at the edge, confronting the assailant across the water. Panting with rage, Cassian shouts angrily at the assailant. Cassian demands to know if someone paid them to commit the attack. Cassian clenches his hand, declaring that the reason for the attack doesn't matter. His hands ignite with fire as he fiercely vows to fry the attacker where they stand. The assailant calmly pulls back their hood and addresses Cassian by name. Cassian's eyes widen in surprise at hearing his name. Cassian gasps in recognition, identifying the assailant as Jack Khalid. Enraged, Cassian shouts at Jack, demanding to know why he killed Jeff. Jack calmly replies that he was merely disposing of a traitor. Cassian shouts in disbelief as a white-haired figure emerges, confirming Jack's words. The white-haired woman explains that Jeff had killed one of their own. The woman, identified as Lyra, an S-rank ice mage, adds that even the Lampus leaders knew of Jeff's treachery. Lyra reiterates that Jeff's actions were considered an act of treason. Jack stares intently at Cassian, continuing his explanation of Jeff's last actions. Jack pauses, allowing his words to sink in for Cassian. Cassian appears unconvinced by their story, looking sternly at the two psykers. Cassian exhales sharply, clearly grappling with the information they have revealed. Cassian questions their claims, stating Jeff had never killed anyone in over 10 years as a psyker. Lyra prepares an ice attack, reiterating the seriousness of their current situation. Jack looks at Cassian and delivers a final warning. Cassian responds to the warning with a defiant smirk. Jack acknowledges Cassian's defiant attitude. Lyra's eye shows intense focus as she speaks of the need to be rational. Declaring his intent to kill, Cassian dashes forward, enveloped in flames. Jack swiftly draws his sword, preparing for Cassian's imminent attack. Cassian unleashes a fiery punch, which Jack parries with his glowing sword. Their attacks collide with an explosive force. Jack's sword glows brilliantly as he continues to fend off Cassian's fiery assault. Jack's sword hums with intense blue energy as he prepares his next move. He unleashes his sword ability, summoning ethereal blades around him. Simultaneously, Lyra unleashes a cold blast, manifesting icy shards around her. Cassian, his eyes burning red, defiantly shouts for them to bring it on. Their combined elemental attacks clash in a chaotic explosion of ice, fire, and blades. Despite the onslaught, Cassian charges forward once more, his hand flaring with fire. Suddenly, Jack is struck by an unseen attack, causing him to stagger backward. Jack falls to the ground, bleeding, as Lyra looks on in shock. Cassian grimaces, realizing the ambush indicates the other psyker is a sniper. Lyra warns Cassian to surrender, threatening to aim for his head next if he refuses. Ignoring her threat, Cassian's hand flares with renewed fire. Jack's eye widens in alarm as he perceives Cassian's continued defiance. Cassian lunges forward, unleashing a powerful torrent of fire while shouting. A massive hellfire explosion engulfs both Lyra and Jack. Cassian curses in frustration, still moving rapidly. He leaps high over the burning ground, evading the flames. Suddenly, a sniper psyker is hit by a powerful, unseen shot. Cassian reels in shock, blood splattering from his body as he utters a bewildered, "Huh?" He plunges downwards through a fiery landscape, his form a small figure amidst the chaos. With a forceful impact, Cassian hits the water below the inferno. Underwater, streaks of blood trail through the bubbles as he sinks deeper. As he descends, Cassian desperately vows not to die before getting revenge, his glowing pendant still visible. The scene abruptly shifts to a clean, modern men's restroom sign. Inside the restroom, a faucet drips continuously as a voice exclaims in disbelief. Panic erupts among several figures in the restroom as they discover someone hunched over a toilet is not breathing. Bubbles constantly rise from the toilet water, indicating something's submerged. Suddenly, a hand submerged in the water twitches slightly. The submerged person dramatically gasps awake, erupting from the toilet water. The newly awakened figure coughs and sputters, hunched over the toilet and struggling for breath. He slowly looks up, panting, revealing golden eyes and a familiar glowing pendant around his neck. Another view confirms their location is still the men's restroom. Looking down into the toilet bowl, he confusedly wonders where he is. He then takes a step, his shoes squishing on the wet floor. The young man stares into a mirror, seeing a reflection of himself in an unfamiliar, youthful body. He slowly raises a hand to his face, touching his new features in disbelief, murmuring, "Huh?" His eye widens in shock as he realizes this unfamiliar reflection is himself. Still bewildered, he questions his reflection about his youthful appearance and missing body as a tap runs water. Looking into the water, he desperately hopes that this bewildering experience is just a dream. He splashes water onto his face in an attempt to clear his head and shake off the confusion. Staring at his reflection, he shouts in frustration, realizing this strange reality is not a dream. Still bewildered, his hand reaches out to firmly grab the edge of the sink. A close-up shows his eye wide, with an intense throb of emotion and dawning realization. A chaotic montage of unfamiliar images flashes through his mind, showing various people and a figure surrounded by lightning. His glowing pendant pulses as he questions what is happening and whose memories these are. His golden eye widens further in shock as he processes the influx of unfamiliar memories. He quickly looks around the empty restroom, demanding to know if anyone else is there. Suddenly, a plume of dark, smoky energy erupts from his glowing pendant. The swirling smoke forms a single eye and introduces itself as Moros, a mighty soul from ancient times. The young man stares, completely stunned by the sudden and mysterious appearance of the entity. Flustered, he points at the entity, asking what it is, while Moros corrects him that it is a who, not a what. Moros's eye widens into a grin, as he states that the young man must have many questions. The young man's eyes reflect a mix of apprehension and curiosity, as Moros asks if he wants to know more. The scene shifts to an outside view of a modern school building as the young man tries to piece things together. In the new location, he asks if Moros brought him back to life, prompting an impatient response. Moros comments on his Korean skills, and the young man explains he lived there before being adopted. The young man looks down thoughtfully, contemplating his current predicament and new reality. A montage of images shows his past self in action as he exclaims his confusion about dying and returning to life. Moros explains that someone acted to protect the young man, leaving him utterly surprised. The young man repeats, "To protect me?" as he recalls Jeff's words in Rhodes. He lets out a heavy sigh as he processes this startling new information. He then remembers Jeff talking about some kind of sword. Moros's eye glows intensely, surrounded by surging blue and yellow energy. Moros reveals a vision of an ancient sword, forged long ago during the War of Myth. The young man questions how Moros could know this, but Moros reminds him he is a mighty soul from ancient times. The young man glares, clearly irritated by Moros's haughty and dismissive response. Holding a smartphone, the young man doubts Moros, who replies he sacrificed half his power to resurrect him. He remains skeptical, stating that he does not believe Moros's claim either. His golden eye widens in a furious glare as he sees something shocking on the phone. He exclaims in horror as he sees news reports accusing him of killing Jeff. His hand trembles as he reads the news article, accusing Cassian Lee of being Jeff's killer. He denies the accusation, yelling, "What is this nonsense? There's no way I'd do that!" Cassian clenches his jaw tightly, gritting his teeth in fury. Engulfed in blue energy, Cassian screams in outrage that he is innocent and has been framed. Moros's eye reflects the electric energy as he desperately tells Cassian to calm down. Electric energy surges violently around Cassian's arm. Blue lightning flashes from his eyes and body as he screams in pain. His hand fully transforms into a sharp, clawed, blue metallic arm. Cassian's blue eye glows intensely as he processes the shocking transformation. Engulfed in blue energy, Cassian screams in disbelief and asks what is happening to him. Elsewhere, a voice impatiently questions why someone is taking so long. 3 boys wait in a secluded area, expecting someone to arrive soon. A heavy-set boy with glasses runs quickly, panting heavily. The purple-haired boy and his blonde companion mock the running boy, calling him a pathetic loser. The purple-haired boy asks the winded boy if he completed his task. The boy reports that the bathroom was empty, causing the blonde boy to react with surprise. The boy with the bat asks for confirmation, wondering if the bathroom was truly empty. The frightened boy insists he saw no one, not even police or an ambulance. One of the boys grits his teeth in frustration, demanding an explanation. The blonde boy furiously chastises the bat-wielding boy, reminding him that he had said the victim wasn't breathing. In a memory, the boy with the bat insists the victim was definitely not breathing. The purple-haired boy dismisses the running boy, who quickly dashes away after taking something. The blonde boy yells at the bat-wielding boy, blaming him for the unnecessary panic. The purple-haired boy calms the situation, expressing relief that the victim survived. The blonde boy then asks what they will do about their victim. The purple-haired boy casually slurps from a stick of candy. With a cruel smirk, the purple-haired boy reveals his malicious plan to further torment the victim. Meanwhile, Cassian stands alone on a sunlit rooftop, observing his surroundings. Cassian shouts in frustration at Moros, who commends his smart move, as a small figure trembles nearby. Cassian demands to know why he became a villain, prompting Moros to remark about his temper. Moros reveals that Cassian was supposed to die, and his return to life has altered destiny. Moros explains that the real Gangu was meant to be reborn as an apocalypse-bringing villain, making Cassian exclaim in shock. Cassian's eye widens dramatically as he repeats the shocking revelation of the apocalypse. Cassian angrily asks if that stupid fate has been passed down to him, which Moros confirms. Cassian lets out a chilling laugh with a distorted, unsettling smile. Cassian despairs, lamenting that he was once a top-class psyker and is now a villain. His hand transforms into a trembling, clawed form as he questions if he is capable of mass destruction. Cassian furiously punches a wall, causing it to shatter with blue energy as he yells, "Damn it!" He continues to yell in frustration, his mouth wide open in a scream. Cassian rages at Moros, demanding to know, "Why the hell did you bring me back?" as Moros urges him to control his emotions. Moros explains that villains are beyond reason, driven by powerful desires, as a sinister clown is briefly seen. Moros warns Cassian about the malicious intent deep in his mind, causing Cassian to react with a shocked expression. Moros assures Cassian that he can control his growing power for now, but warns it may become too much if his rage increases. Sitting dejectedly, Cassian questions his identity as a villain, wondering what that implies. He clenches his transformed hand, deep in thought about his new reality. Cassian's eye glows blue as a voice encourages him. "You must live on." Moros tells Cassian that's what Jeff would have told him, eliciting a surprised, "What?" from Cassian. Moros reveals that before seeing him again, Jeff regretted dragging Cassian into this situation. Moros explains that Jeff knew his death was near, but chose not to find a way out of it. Instead, Jeff gave his last hope for survival to Cassian, represented by a glowing blue pendant. Cassian holds the pendant in his transformed hand, letting out a soft exhalation. Over a bright view of the school building, Moros calls out to Cassian. Moros congratulates Cassian for being calm, which causes Cassian to angrily tell him to stop bossing him around. Sitting against a wall, Cassian concedes, saying that he will do it. Cassian then asks Moros his identity, telling him to stop with the mighty soul talk as Moros introduces himself. Cassian retorts, asking why else he would be asking. Cassian asks if Moros can bring a person back to life, to which Moros replies, he will find out once they locate the Sword of Annihilation. Cassian then asks if the Sword of Annihilation is linked to Jeff's death. Moros confidently confirms that it is linked. As Cassian remains thoughtful, Moros calls out to him. Cassian turns to see 3 students approaching him from behind, with one of them chuckling. The purple-haired student smirks, expressing surprise that Cassian is still alive. The scene shifts to a full view of the gleaming school building. Inside, 2 female students react with surprise in the hallway. A new character, Uchan Kim, identified as a psyker trainee with fire abilities, walks through the hall, captivating the girls. Uchan Kim continues walking past the buzzing students. His phone rings with an incoming call from Daewon Lee Sonbae, and he taps to answer it. Uchan puts the phone to his ear, asking, "What's up?" Other female students in the hallway murmur and express surprise at the situation. Uchan Kim's blue eye glances in a specific direction. Uchan Kim listens intently while holding the phone to his ear. From his position, Uchan Kim continues his call, while 2 figures are visible on the school rooftop. Meanwhile, Cassian stands in an outdoor area, confronting the 3 students, one of whom is armed with a bat. Cassian maintains a serious expression as he faces the group of students. Cassian thinks about these kids, recalling past negative experiences. Moros appears beside Cassian, reassuring him that others cannot see him. The yellow-haired student points and shouts at Cassian, while Moros floats unseen beside him. The yellow-haired student opens a cigarette pack, asking Cassian if he knows the drill. The purple-haired student, holding a lit cigarette, reminds Cassian of their routine. The purple-haired student flinches with a surprised expression, holding the cigarette pack as his companion also reacts. Cassian's mouth is set in a firm, determined line. Cassian declares that beating up kids is not his usual thing, but he will make an exception for them. Moros reminds Cassian that even in a human form, villains are much stronger than average humans. Moros warns Cassian about controlling his power, to which Cassian confidently replies that he knows. The yellow-haired student takes a step forward, challenging Cassian about his next move. The yellow-haired student confronts Cassian, demanding to know what he is muttering about. Cassian's eyes narrow with intense focus, indicating his readiness. The yellow-haired student's eyes are wide with surprise and fear, reacting to Cassian's demeanor. The yellow-haired student aggressively lunges at Cassian, demanding to know what he is looking at. Cassian delivers a swift and powerful blow to the student's face. The yellow-haired student is sent flying backward from the impact of Cassian's strike. The purple-haired student and his companion with the bat look on with wide-eyed shock. Cassian stands ready, his fists clenched in a fighting stance. The yellow-haired student lies defeated on the ground, while Cassian's remaining opponents look on in disbelief. The purple-haired student, reeling in shock, wonders aloud what just happened. The student with glasses sprints forward, raising his bat and threatening to kill Cassian. Cassian's eyes narrow with intense focus, preparing for the next attack. Cassian quickly shifts his position with a decisive step. Cassian skillfully blocks the incoming bat strike with his arm. Cassian immediately retaliates, winding up for a powerful punch. The student with glasses crashes to the ground, defeated by Cassian's swift blow. The purple-haired student's lit cigarette falls from his mouth in utter shock. Both the yellow-haired and glasses-wearing students lie unconscious on the ground. Cassian turns and gives a quick glance toward the sole remaining student. The purple-haired student takes a wary step back, sweat beading on his forehead. He attempts to maintain his bravado, asking Cassian what is wrong. A nervous smirk crosses his lips as he mutters under his breath. He bursts into a forced, mocking laugh, calling Cassian a loser. The purple-haired student challenges Cassian, asking if he feels cocky after beating up weaklings. Cassian's eyes glow with resolve as he declares his fists will do the teaching. An overhead view shows the three students spread across the rooftop. Cassian rapidly charges forward, leaving a blur of speed in his wake. The purple-haired student also dashes forward, preparing for the fight. Both students sprint rapidly, closing the distance between them on the rooftop. The purple-haired student swings a punch, but Cassian skillfully ducks to evade the blow. Cassian immediately retaliates, landing a powerful punch to his opponent's abdomen. The purple-haired student reels backward, overwhelmed by the force of Cassian's strike. Cassian prepares for his next attack, his eyes glowing with fierce intensity. He delivers a powerful uppercut, sending the purple-haired student flying upwards. The purple-haired student's face contorts in an expression of intense pain. With a pained cry, the purple-haired student collapses to the ground. Cassian stands victorious, looking down at his third defeated opponent. Cassian asks the groaning student if he feels guilty, but the student defiantly tells him to go to hell. Cassian grabs the student by his collar, stating that the lesson won't sink in if he holds back. Cassian's face darkens, his eyes glowing with an intense and menacing red light. The purple-haired student's eyes widen in sheer terror at Cassian's dark expression. Cassian continues to hold the student as another figure approaches them from behind. A red-haired student stands calmly with his hands in his pockets, observing the scene. The purple-haired student, still held by Cassian, urgently yells the name, "Uchan!" The red-haired student intervenes, pushing the purple-haired student away from Cassian, asserting it's none of Cassian's business. The purple-haired student glares back, internally furious at being deemed weaker than his opponent. He grinds his teeth in frustration, refusing to accept the red-haired student's assessment. Enraged, the purple-haired student lunges forward, aiming a powerful punch at Cassian. Cassian quickly shifts his stance, turning his foot to evade the incoming attack. With a swift counter, Cassian delivers another solid blow to the purple-haired student. The force of Cassian's strike sends the purple-haired student crashing onto the ground. The red-haired student places a hand on Cassian's shoulder, sternly telling him that's enough. Cassian's eyes narrow as he turns to face the student who just interrupted him. The red-haired student looks back at Cassian, surprised by his intense gaze. Cassian unexpectedly swings a punch, landing a direct hit on the red-haired student's face. Cassian looks at his hand, seemingly confused by his own spontaneous action. The red-haired student swiftly blocks Cassian's punches, catching both of his fists. The red-haired student then rapidly spins around, disorienting Cassian. Cassian's eyes widen in surprise at the red-haired student's speed. He quickly shifts his weight, attempting to regain his balance. The red-haired student delivers a powerful kick, which Cassian narrowly ducks under. Cassian observes the red-haired student, acknowledging his impressive speed. Suddenly, the dark, single-eyed entity appears, urgently calling out, "Cassian!" The dark entity urgently warns Cassian that his opponent is a psyker too dangerous to face in human form, to which Cassian reacts with surprise. The red-haired student swiftly launches another powerful punch towards Cassian. Cassian is violently struck across the face by the red-haired student's rapid blow. Cassian's face reels back from the impact, showing a clear scratch. The view briefly shifts to an exterior shot of the school building under a clear blue sky. The red-haired student maintains his fighting stance, observing Cassian intently. Cassian, with the new scratch on his cheek, stares back with a determined expression, ready to continue the fight. The red-haired student realizes Cassian is also a psyker, exclaiming in surprise. A close-up highlights the red-haired student's intense and surprised gaze. The red-haired student raises a hand, suggesting they stop fighting, as nothing good will come of it. He then extends a cute, cartoon-decorated band-aid toward Cassian. The red-haired student calmly notes that Cassian's face is bleeding and offers the band-aid. Both students look at each other, their expressions remaining serious after the intense fight. Cassian quickly snatches the band-aid from the red-haired student's hand. Cassian turns his back and walks away, leaving the red-haired student behind. The red-haired student watches Cassian depart with a thoughtful expression. He internally questions how Cassian managed to defeat all three opponents by himself, wondering who he truly is. He glances down, contemplating the new information about Cassian. The red-haired student holds his arm, feeling a throb from their earlier exchange. The scene transitions to a wide, sunny view of the bustling city buildings. The scene shifts to the exterior of a building with a large sign displaying Dream PC. Inside, multiple students are engrossed in games at individual computer stations. A close-up shows a finger pressing a key, displaying an out of access message and indicating his ID has been deleted. Cassian holds his head in frustration, admitting he had already suspected this would happen. The view shifts to a wide shot of the sunny city skyline, bustling with buildings under a clear blue sky. From an overhead perspective, Cassian and the black entity stand on a checkered street, with the entity calling him Moros. Cassian leans against a wall, holding his phone and a wrapper, asking how the entity knew the previous student was a psyker. The entity explains that it could sense the red-haired student's power when he touched Cassian during their fight. Cassian acknowledges this ability as quite useful, and the entity boasts it can do much more. The entity elaborates on power analysis, stating it can discover much more, which surprises Cassian. The entity then suggests Cassian change into a villain's form so it can analyze his skills. Cassian pauses, holding his phone and wrapper, seemingly considering the entity's request. The entity asks if he is uninterested, and Cassian quickly confirms that he is indeed interested. Cassian's hands firmly crumple the wrapper, indicating a decision. He explains that the villain's power is currently all he possesses. The entity explains that villains are born from a lack of control over desires and emotions, which Cassian finds a difficult concept. A close-up focuses on the black entity's single, glowing eye. Cassian clenches his fist tightly, feeling a surge of anger within him. He undergoes a rapid and powerful transformation, surrounded by an intense blue light. The transformation culminates in a wide open mouth, letting out a raw, guttural scream. The transformed Cassian shouts furiously, threatening to kill Lampus, those bastards. while the entity looks startled. A close-up reveals Cassian, still transformed, shouts in surprise about his sudden burst of anger. The entity advises Cassian to picture his anger, causing Cassian to complain about the late instruction. The scene shifts to a broad cityscape under clear blue skies. Information appears introducing a villain named Blaster, who enjoys making bombs explode. A gloved hand highlights Blaster's digital profile, noting he snuck into Korea and was sighted in Gadam. The red-haired trainee holds a tablet, expressing surprise that Blaster is responsible for 102 deaths and injuries. A close-up focuses on a mouth taking a large bite of food. Daewon Lee, a B-rank psyker, drives while eating and describes Blaster's bomb-making skills as a significant problem. Daewon Lee continues to chew, calling Blaster outrageous, while the red-haired trainee insists all villains must be obliterated. The red-haired trainee seriously explains that villains are dangerous criminals who cannot control their desires and emotions. Daewon Lee comments on the trainee's seriousness about villains, reminding him that psykers fight for justice. Daewon Lee's mouth forms a confident grin as he looks straight ahead. Daewon Lee confidently declares he will fight the villains and tells the trainee to back him up. The scene returns to a sunny cityscape, featuring a dental clinic sign among the buildings. Cassian stands looking at a glowing blue holographic screen that materializes before him. The entity reveals Cassian's power analysis bio, identifying him as Gangu Guan, with main skills Shadow Slicer and Self-Heal. The entity informs Cassian that he can immediately use his Shadow Slicer and Self-Heal skills. Cassian looks at his arm in surprise as the entity states his wound is healing quickly, thanks to his skill. Cassian asks if his Self-Heal skill can regrow lost limbs, and the entity replies that it depends on his magic points. Cassian questions a hidden skill on his display, and the entity explains it requires leveling up. Cassian is shocked to realize he only has 300 magic points, remembering he had over 1,500 as a psyker. He asks why his magic points are so low despite his potential, and the entity clarifies it's merely potential. The entity cites the human saying, "No pain, no gain," and warns that potential without effort will go to waste. Cassian asks if his power analysis skill can also be used to see other people's powers, and the entity confirms it. The entity explains that analyzing Jeff caused an overload, making it fall asleep for half a day. Cassian looks thoughtful, pondering the entity's revelation about falling asleep for half a day. The entity suggests testing Cassian's main skills, and Cassian asks if he needs to shout out the skill name. The entity instructs Cassian to picture what a Shadow Slicer would look like. Cassian punches forward, manifesting a powerful blue energy slash that impacts the ground. Cassian looks surprised and exclaims that his attack worked, while the entity expresses its own surprise. He discovers he can touch the manifested skill, which appears as a sharp blue blade. Cassian states that the shadow feels like a super sharp, real sword. The entity expresses surprise that Cassian mastered the skill immediately, expecting it to take a whole day. Cassian wonders if this is the potential Jeff saw in him, and asks if the solid shadow can also be used as a shield. The entity tells Cassian that villains can design their own outfits and weapons, a fact Cassian already knows. Cassian transforms, his arms glowing with blue circuit-like patterns. The entity critiques Cassian's new look, suggesting fashion is not his skill, prompting Cassian to angrily tell it to shut up. The cityscape glows orange and pink under a sunset sky, featuring an escape room sign and a department store banner. The entity asks Cassian where he is going as it gets dark, and Cassian replies he is going home. The entity floats beside Cassian, who walks on the street as darkness begins to fall. Cassian, looking thoughtful, explains that Gangu has a family. A woman smiles as the entity clarifies that Gangu's parents are gone, but he lives with his sister. The entity asks if Cassian is going to see Gangu's sister, and Cassian replies that he should. Cassian thinks about Gangu, who was destined to become a villain but deeply cared about his sister. When the entity asks if he feels guilty, Cassian shouts back that Gangu is dead because of him. A sudden explosion of light and debris dominates the frame. Cassian's eyes widen dramatically as streaks of light imply rapid motion or impact nearby. People scream and run from a rumbling, collapsing building as Cassian observes the chaos. Cassian looks shocked and confused, exclaiming in disbelief amidst the commotion. The building continues to rumble and collapse, surrounded by smoke and falling debris. The panicked crowd shouts about a villain attack and the news blowing up social media, while Cassian stands stunned. A woman cries out that the villain took a mother and child hostage, prompting Cassian to ask if they really took hostages. Cassian turns sharply with a look of grim determination on his face. The entity dashes forward with a shocked expression and a question mark above its eye. Cassian sprints through the devastated cityscape as the entity urgently calls out for him to wait. The entity wishes alongside Cassian, reminding him they are dealing with a real villain, not just local punks. The entity explains that a villain is beyond humans, but Cassian fiercely declares that he will turn into a villain too then. The entity reminds Cassian, who was once a psyker, that it is forbidden for villains to attack their own kind. The entity adds that exceptions exist for attacking other villains, such as old grudges or unresolved business, as smoke billows in the background. The entity warns Cassian that, as a villain, it is not wise to antagonize other villains unnecessarily. It cautions that making enemies of too many villains could jeopardize his chance for revenge on Lampus. With a decisive movement, Cassian's foot firmly lands, ready for action. Cassian stands determinedly before the rumbling, damaged building, which still emanates smoke and debris. With a grim expression, Cassian acknowledges the warning, declaring, "Then so be it." The entity's eye widens dramatically, expressing clear shock and surprise at Cassian's resolve. The building continues to crumble, with spreading cracks and debris falling around the entrance. The entity urgently calls out Cassian's name, questioning if his actions stem from his past as a psyker. As Cassian walks toward a staircase, the entity confirms that a mother and child have been taken hostage. Cassian ascends the stairs, acknowledging the hostage's peril and stating that he knows they are in trouble. His resolute gaze shows unwavering commitment, asserting that turning a blind eye is not in my book. The entity looks on, its form glowing as if deep in thought or observation. The entity, next to another person by a lake, describes Cassian as hot-tempered and perceived as out of control. The entity continues, holding a locket with Cassian's image, calling him a kind soul with the warmest heart. The man holding the locket smiles confidently, expressing his trust in Cassian. Back in the present, a rhythmic sound indicates Cassian is moving quickly. Cassian runs with urgency, his determined stride echoed by multiple tapping sounds. The man's face glows with a warm, supportive smile. The entity empowers Cassian, urging him to transform and promising full support as he runs. The damaged building stands as a testament to the destruction, with debris still falling around it. Inside the damaged building, toys and shattered glass litter the floor. A crushed toy box lies among tiny toy parts and glass shards on the damaged floor. Two stuffed toys, a masked bear and a duck, are visible behind a surface of cracked glass. In the disarrayed room, a woman and child are tied to chairs, and the woman desperately pleads with their captor. A hand firmly holds a bomb-shaped device, glowing and crackling with red energy. The villain stands between the two terrified hostages, whose chairs are visibly trembling. The distressed woman and crying child are told not to cry, as the villain claims he only wants them to have fun. From behind, the villain menacingly demands that the distraught mother and child should smile. The villain, identified as Blaster, grins maniacally while holding the buzzing bomb device. The scene shifts to an aerial view of a P&P gas station where a blue sports car is parked at a pump. A red-haired man leans against the blue car as the sun sets behind the Huam Baking Academy building. The man rustles his arm, appearing to adjust his jacket or sleeve. Lost in thought, the man recalls a memory of a past fight, reflecting that he let his guard down. A buzzing sound is heard as the man continues to reflect that he doesn't even know his opponent's name. His hand moves to his side, reaching towards the source of the persistent buzzing. His blue eyes widen suddenly in surprise and shock. A man with purple dreadlocks and sunglasses talks on the phone, apologizing and promising to make it up next time. The purple-haired man blows a kiss into his phone, while the red-haired man continues his own call. The red-haired man informs the purple-haired man, "Sionbei, duty calls," startling him. The red-haired man, holding his phone, reveals the urgent news that Blaster is in town. Blaster asks the terrified, tied-up child if he's ever seen fireworks exploding into a rainbow of colors. Blaster laments the child's negative response, calling it tragic. He reassures the crying child, telling him not to be too sad. Blaster, with his terrifying grin, promises to show the child something even more resplendent. He reveals the woman, the child's mother, bound with chains and what appear to be explosives. Blaster gleefully describes the mother bursting into pieces with the fireworks as the child watches in horror. Blaster excitedly proclaims that he can't wait to see the spectacle. His glowing hands move towards the woman, threatening to destroy her legs. Suddenly, Blaster is startled, looking around the room in confusion. A close-up shows his eye glowing with a malevolent red light. A sinister grin spreads across Blaster's face. He announces the arrival of a guest, considering it lovely. He taunts the unseen guest, telling them not to be shy. Electricity crackles around Blaster's hand as he invites the guest to come out and play. A powerful impact signals a dark figure's arrival as he smashes through the glass. Blaster quickly dashes out of the way to avoid the incoming attack. A powerful fist connects with a resounding impact. An explosion erupts, sending debris flying from the impact. Amidst the smoke, a dark figure stands, while Blaster lies defeated on the ground. The man, now with dark hair and striking dual-colored eyes, lets out a sigh of relief. The man with dual-colored eyes asks the dark spirit if the hostages are still safe, and the spirit confirms they are fine. Suddenly, the spirit warns Cassian about a bomb as a glowing skull-shaped device appears in his hand. The skull-shaped bomb glows with intense red energy, radiating power. The frightened hostages look on in terror as the dark spirit's eye glows intensely. With a powerful push, Cassian launches himself into action. Cassian unleashes a powerful, glowing punch toward an unseen target. The immense impact sends cracks spreading across the nearby building's facade. A massive explosion erupts, sending shards of glass flying outwards. On the street below, citizens scream and question if it was an explosion, asking for police and psykers. Dust and debris settle amidst the destruction, with glowing particles scattered on the ground. Overturned vehicles and crumbling structures attest to the widespread devastation of the area. Blaster stands amidst the ruins, his back to the viewer, letting out a sinister chuckle as cracks appear on his body. A close-up shows Blaster's teeth gritting together in a pained expression. Blaster grins, acknowledging his opponent as incredibly rude, while blood drips from his wounds. Blaster laments that his unexpected guest left too soon, wishing for a more splendid display of fireworks. He turns back to the hostages, dismissing the interruption, as his hand glows with crackling energy. With a malevolent grin, Blaster declares that he can still get his fill from the hostages, the main attraction. Suddenly, Blaster is struck by a powerful blue energy beam, throwing him off balance. His red eyes widen in shock as red debris flies around him from the impact. A glowing blue blade slashes through the air, hitting the bomb on Blaster's chest. Blaster screams in agony as shards of red energy burst outwards from his body. A figure, moving at incredible speed, appears as a blinding blue energy burst. Blaster recoils in furious pain and surprise as a blue energy hand snatches at him. The shadowy figure delivers a forceful impact, sending an explosion of blue and red energy outward. Dust and debris settle on the ground, disturbed by the recent impacts. Blaster lies defeated on the ground, groaning in pain, his body trembling as red lightning crackles from his hand. A hand, encased in glowing blue energy, firmly grabs Blaster's arm. Cassian stands over the subdued Blaster, warning him not to repeat his mistake as blue energy crackles around him. Cassian delivers a devastating punch, generating a powerful burst of blue energy and red particles. A barrage of rapid blows continues in a fierce flurry of attacks against the target. More intense impacts explode with glowing energy from the relentless assault. The devastating blows send the target reeling and slamming repeatedly to the ground. Cassian continues his relentless attack, demanding more from his opponent. Cassian's face glows with a terrifying, insatiable grin as he shouts for more, while another voice calls his name. A close-up reveals a monstrous, glowing grin with jagged teeth in a dark, wet environment. Amidst a cosmic background, a single, glowing blue eye opens as the voice again calls out for Cassian. Cassian stands over the defeated and bloodied Blaster, his own face splattered with blood and eyes glowing blue in the shattered environment. A flame-like blue spirit, positioned before a broken window, declares that Cassian can finally hear it. A close-up shows Cassian's spiky hair and intense gaze, with one eye glowing blue and the other yellow. Cassian, his face smeared with blood and both eyes glowing, pants heavily while holding his glowing blue hand. Blaster lies defeated and bloody on the ground, yelling in agony and confusion. Cassian's glowing blue hand trembles as he questions his actions. The dark spirit floats above Cassian, who sits among the ruins, stating he lost control. With blood on his face, Cassian listens as the spirit explains that his anger consumed him. The spirit warns Cassian that without regaining his senses, he would have become a full villain, prompting Cassian to shout. Cassian grits his teeth in frustration, his bloodied face reflecting his inner turmoil. His jaw clenches tightly in a moment of intense frustration. Cassian stands over Blaster, assuring the spirit he is fine and deciding to check on the hostages first. Debris litters the ground, indicating movement through the destruction. Cassian's leg steps past as two bound hostages become visible in the background. Cassian looks around with a concerned expression, his distinct eyes still glowing, as the dark spirit floats nearby. The two hostages, a woman and a child, tremble visibly with wide, fearful eyes. Outside, a police car with flashing lights pulls up to the damaged building at night. A bloody Blaster, still shouting, is carefully loaded onto a stretcher into an ambulance. An agent confirms via communicator that the mother and child are safe amidst ongoing rescue operations. Observing the scene, an agent deduces a territorial dispute between villains, suggesting further investigation. A close-up on a teddy bear accompanies the agent's report of an unidentified villain not in their records. The red-haired agent thoughtfully holds the teddy bear, observing the broken windows. Holding the teddy bear, the agent notes with concern that one of the hostages was a child. With a determined expression, the red-haired agent declares the necessity to eradicate all villains. Two officers discuss a rumor about the incident, noting that multiple witnesses confirm the peculiar story. The red-haired agent interrupts two officers, asking them to confirm the person they were discussing. The red-haired agent with a visible cross earring declares the name Uchan. A purple-haired agent instructs an officer to check the first-floor surveillance cameras. The red-haired agent holds the teddy bear, appearing both concerned and thoughtful. The teddy bear is left lying on the ground amidst debris. A wide shot reveals the city buildings illuminated by the moonlight at night. Cassian sits thoughtfully alone on a park bench under the blue night glow. A vision shows the distressed mother and child, trembling before a menacing, dark figure. Back on the bench, Cassian covers his face, seemingly overwhelmed by his thoughts. The dark spirit floats nearby, asking Cassian if he is in pain. The spirit floats closer to Cassian, continuing its worried inquiry. The spirit questions if it will lose its mind like the villain, and Cassian confirms that it will. Cassian looks up at the sky as a strong gust of wind blows around him. Cassian sits calmly back on the bench, a glowing phone lying beside him. He picks up his glowing phone and scrolls through its screen. The spirit asks about the message, and Cassian says it's Gangu's sister, reminding him dinner is ready. The spirit then asks if Cassian intends to go to Gangu's home. Cassian continues looking at his phone, a grumble heard nearby. The damaged facade of a building looms in the night, reflecting the sky. A weathered sign for an office is visible. A man with purple dreadlocks and sunglasses looks surprised, exclaiming in disbelief. He and two other men intently watch a screen, wondering about the identity of a mysterious person. The glitching screen displays Cassian attempting to save hostages, making one observer question if they are seeing things. Pointing at the live feed, the dreadlocked man asks if the entire situation is some kind of prank. Another man with red hair looks on thoughtfully, offering no immediate response. A tall apartment building stands against the blue night sky, its windows glowing with light. A close-up reveals an apartment door number, 701. Inside an apartment, Cassian stands before a dining table laden with covered dishes. He reaches to pull a small yellow note from under one of the food covers. The note instructs him to heat up the soup and rice, also mentioning fruit in the fridge. The message concludes, signed by Yuri, the cutest sister in the world, with a winking face. In a large dining hall, a small child apologizes to a woman, explaining that he lost track of time. The woman sternly informs the child that there is no dinner for tardy kids, causing him to look down sadly. Suddenly, a kind hand offers the forlorn child a loaf of bread. Another boy, identified as Jeff, is quietly told to make sure the woman doesn't catch him eating this. Jeff eagerly takes a large bite of the offered bread, smiling broadly. Back in the apartment, Cassian looks down thoughtfully at the note in his hand. The dinner spread includes a bowl of rice, soup, and various delicious-looking side dishes. Cassian sits alone at the dining table, contemplating the meal prepared for him. A spoonful of warm soup, containing tofu and other ingredients, is lifted from the bowl. Cassian brings the spoon to his mouth, savoring the prepared meal. A flashback reveals a younger Cassian joyfully sharing a meal with an older man, making him reflect on the kindness. Back in the present, Cassian sits alone at the dining table, finishing his meal as bright sunlight streams through the window. The next morning, a bright sun shines over the apartment buildings. An alarm clock loudly rings from a bedroom, disturbing the quiet morning. A digital clock on the nightstand displays 7:50 as the alarm persists. Cassian's eye slowly opens, roused by the persistent sound. Lying in bed, Cassian is now fully awake, with the alarm continuing to blare all around him. A close-up shows Cassian's tired face as the alarm marks the start of his day. Inside the bathroom, morning routines are underway. A toothbrush and toothpaste stand ready in a cup on the sink. Cassian begins to brush his teeth, preparing for the day. Looking at his reflection, Cassian reflects on his current life as someone else. He then gargles, continuing his thought about feeling better once fully awake. Bubbles and a mystical symbol appear as Cassian deeply wishes he could turn back time. Cassian sighs as a floating, one-eyed spirit greets him, to which he replies dismissively about the morning. Cassian puts on his sneakers, preparing to leave the apartment. Dressed and with a bag slung over his shoulder, Cassian looks back as the spirit asks if he is off to school. Yuri, identified as Gang-U's older sister, stands in the doorway, reminding someone to say goodbye. Cassian feels awkward seeing Yuri, who asks if he ate breakfast. Cassian wonders if he should tell Yuri he isn't her real brother, as Yuri has a sudden thought. Yuri holds out a debit card with a cartoon bear design, saying it's the one he asked for. Yuri tells Cassian she put his allowance on the card and warns him not to waste it, surprising him. A close-up shows the debit card, with its cartoon bear design, being transferred. Later, Cassian calls out to Yuri, who is relaxing on the couch with a remote. Cassian, now in a suit, asks Yuri if he can get an advance on his next month's allowance. Yuri looks displeased, pointing out that it hasn't even been a week since his last allowance. A flashback reveals Gang-woo being pressured by bullies to lend them a significant amount of money. Gang-woo, looking nervous with a sweat drop, claims he lost his wallet to the bullies. Back in the present, Yuri agrees to his request, tapping the remote. Cassian happily thanks Yuri, who says she'd do anything for her dear brother. Yuri winks, telling Cassian that she will make him a new debit card. Cassian looks shocked and confused at the mention of a debit card. Cassian holds the debit card he previously received, realizing the reason behind Yuri's actions. Cassian, feeling awkward, thanks Yuri for the card and promises not to waste it as he leaves. Yuri observes that Cassian looks a little different, causing him to flinch. Cassian scratches his neck as Yuri exclaims he looks much better. Yuri asks why he finally changed his mind about trimming his hair, and Cassian replies he only brushed it. As Cassian waves goodbye and enters the elevator, Yuri teases him about having a girlfriend. Students mill about outside a school building, murmuring and bustling. The narration shifts to a classroom, indicated by a 3-to-1 sign above the door. Inside the classroom, several students express shock and concern, noting that someone appears to be hurt. Other students join the conversation, recognizing the injured person as Shechan and wondering if he was beaten up. Shechan, with a bandage on his face, looks annoyed, while students around him murmur about his appearance. Shechan's expression turns thoughtful, and he murmurs to himself. Still at his desk, Shechan observes other students turning their heads. Suddenly, Shechan stands on his desk and angrily shouts at his classmates, causing them to flinch. Shechan grinds his teeth, furious and blaming a loser, as a figure resembling Cassian is seen in the background. Shechan is startled when a hand taps his shoulder, prompting him to ask what is happening. It is Cassian who stands behind Shechan, his hand resting on the boy's shoulder. Cassian looks down at Shechan with a serious and intense expression. Shechan's face is covered in sweat, indicating his extreme fear. Another student points towards Cassian, timidly mentioning Gang-woo. As Cassian walks through the classroom, students murmur his name, and Shechan trembles in his seat. Cassian casually leans against a windowsill, looking out as his bag falls beside him. From his desk, Cassian stares at Shechan, who internally feels Cassian is trying to drill a hole through him with his eyes. The dark eye spirit reappears as a student discusses a recent villain attack in their neighborhood. A student excitedly recounts witnessing villains fighting, describing the event as totally bonkers. As Cassian looks at his phone, the dark eye spirit suggests that the students are talking about him.